All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Paint Talks This podcast. I am your host, Dionne Woods, and my guest today is Emily Roth. Hello, my friend.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. I am honored to be here.
I am thrilled that you're here, and we're going to dive into some of your background a little bit. I know that we have some listeners who follow you already at Weathered Heart Designs, and so we're going to go into that a little bit. But I want to remind all of our listeners, please, to head over to the turquoiseirisjournal.com. And if you guys are not subscribed to this magazine, I'm telling you now, we would love if you would give us a chance. We are working very hard at being your absolute favorite go-to creative magazine. There are a lot of fabulous ones on the market, and we are completely inspired each day as well. But what we have is something a little bit unique. So we are curators of timeless creativity, and we work very hard at merging the generational gap between creatives that are in their 80s and in their 20s or teens and learning from one another. So we've literally had our youngest person in our magazine has been 16 years old, maybe 15 actually. And then we've had people that were in their 80s as well. So that's important to us because we do believe that creativity should be passed on from generation to generation, especially through the fast times of what we're doing in our technology these days. So our magazine is to kind of journalize these concepts and these techniques and to share. I had someone quote recently, making and baking are nothing without heart. And I thought, I'm going to be repeating that just so you know. Okay. Like that was simple, but I need to repeat that. So we ask and encourage you all to head over to the turquoiseirisjournal.com, check out a subscription. We have digitals, gift subscriptions, quarterly, as well as annual. And what we do here on the podcast is I bring in the guests who have been featured inside the Turquoise Iris Journal, like Emily here, and get a little bit of their backstory. So we see their visuals, we see their work, but this lets them tell their story. And if you'll scroll down after this episode to the description, you'll be able to read a little bit more about Emily and be able to click links that will send you to her socials where you can follow her there. Now, Emily, tell everybody where you are, and I don't know, like, how do you describe yourself when you meet someone in an airport and says, what do you do?
So I have a hard time. I feel like condensing what I do. So I'll try to make this short and sweet. My name is Emily Roth, and I'm the owner and artist at Weathered Heart Designs, and I am located just north of Seattle, Washington, and south of Vancouver, BC, in a little farming town called Arlington, Washington. And I started out my journey actually in Savannah, Georgia in 2017, I believe it was. So I've been a creative my whole life, but that's when I really started taking on furniture, and I started this hobby as like a regular, I guess, a regular hobby instead of just like a one-off project here and there. It was like constant project after project. So I do specialize in furniture art, canvas art, but I'm definitely multi-passionate when it comes to creative outlets. So I've done hand embroidery recently. I've tried watercolor art. I've done a lot more. I've kind of broadened my horizons, and I love it all. It's hard for me to kind of stay pinpointed on one thing. But definitely I always come back to furniture and canvas art. Something that I have recently started doing, I feel like I found my style that I seem to always come back to, which is kind of a range of styles. It's very cottagecore. It is old world style. I love texture. I love very earthy colors. I love incorporating a sense of, whether it's invoking a sense of, I guess, a location, like it reminds you of a location, or it reminds you of a memory, a feeling. That's kind of what I put into my furniture and my art. And I've also gone with the approach of creating from the heart instead of sorry, excuse me, instead of creating from my brain, because I feel like my brain will tell me I want to
Mm.
paint neons today, and then I want to paint uh, very creamy cottage colors the next day, and my heart knows what my style really is and the style that I enjoy the most. And those are the pieces that when I create them, I fall in love with them. And I
Mhm.
feel like those are the ones that tend to do the best for me, as well as when I follow true to my heart.
It's a really good point that you made there because, Emily, you were talking about like falling in love. And it may sound silly to someone that doesn't quite understand how passionate we are for the furniture makeover process. Because when we give it a new life and we give it love, and that's what we're doing, but there's also this connection. And so for me, I can remember standing in my garage 2 houses ago, probably 2012, maybe 13. And Emily, I painted something turquoise and then I put navy over it. And then I sanded it and I saw turquoise peek out. Now, granted, I put the dark color over the light color. And there was something about that process that made this go boom, 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 boom. And I'm like, is anybody seeing this now? Like, no one's around. I'm like, hey, did you know that you could do this? Of course, I was using latex too. So I had like the belt sander, just getting after that paint, layers and layers of paint. But when I saw that peek through and then I saw the woodwork, I went, what's, like somebody. And so, of course I grabbed Matt and Matt's like, we got to go to baseball. Like nobody's caring. Nobody's caring. And so then you go through this whole like, is this good? I take a picture, I put it up, I get great feedback, and that prompts the next, like, how do I get that feeling again? And so I create a piece, I don't get that feeling. I create a piece, I don't get that feeling because you can't duplicate what you just did. But that's the thing that helps you go to the next. Like, how do I recreate that passion that I just felt as a creative? And then how do I get someone else to fall in love with it? And that's kind of what you're experiencing. You're saying you know your style, you've kind of fallen in love with that weathered look, something that might uh kind of resemble a place or maybe an architect, like a building, or like you get those layers and those things that you do. Did you fall in love with painting first, or did you fall in love with the idea of being an entrepreneur first?
I definitely fell in love with the idea of painting first. So I
Got
started it, it wasn't out of a necessity at the time to make it a business. It was definitely just pure passion and doing it as a hobby to keep me busy while my husband was at work in a new state where I didn't have any friends. We had his parents, but other than that, that's the only other people that I knew, all the way on the other side of the US. So it I've been a homebody. I've been an introvert my whole life. So I do enjoy quiet time and being home. So it wasn't a bad thing for me to stay home
Right.
and, create and work from home. But that wasn't like my main reason for doing it. It was just purely I had the creative itch and I had to just go wild and try to figure out what it was that my heart was telling me to create. Because I started out as farmhouse, and while that has its own place in the decor world,
Absolutely.
I definitely learned that white and gray everything to me started feeling very empty and a little cold. And I had to figure out how to put my spin on it and start to bring in elements that felt more like me instead of sticking so much to a specific trending decor
Yeah.
style.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can see that you started doing that almost as kind of like a therapy because you said you were alone a lot, which you didn't have a problem being alone, but you had extra time on your hands without friend dates and interactions and, no local weddings and all the things that you do when you have a bunch of family around. Like it was just, so it kind of it sounds like it was a little bit of like therapy of like, this is a new place. It's a new time. I'm alone a lot. For me, it was to pay my bills. Like, how can
Yeah.
I help? I had to help pay the bills.
Mhm.
Pulling from like, okay, everybody always says I'm really good at X, Y, and Z. How do I turn that into something that generates income, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where I was. Um, as your style has evolved, you work with a lot of flowers. I've seen you do a lot of sunsets. You just mentioned something about weaving and doing that as well. So I'm excited to talk to you a little bit about that too. But let's talk about Emily when she was like 8, 9, and 10. What could we find you doing when you were that age, 8, 9, and 10? What were you up to?
All things arts, crafts, building, whether it was Legos or in my grandpa's workshop. I was out there. I thought I was building birdhouses, but he would really just give me wood and hammer and nails, and I would just sit there and just nail pieces together until I felt like it was something. But I've always been working with my hands and doing things creatively. It's really funny because I know like sometimes dads don't know what to get their daughters for like gifts for Christmas or birthdays. And I
Yeah.
always joke that my dad, when I think I was 10, he got me a toolbox for my, I think it was for Christmas actually. And I can't tell you how much I've used that little, I think it was just like the Walmart special little toolbox that comes out around Christmas time. I
Love
have
it.
used that thing until it has rusted out. I still have parts from that toolbox that I use today. So while it was kind of funny, like, other girls my age didn't understand, like, you're getting a toolbox, oh weird, like, it made sense for me. And it I don't know, it's it's one of my favorite gifts actually that my dad gave me, even though it wasn't something expensive, it wasn't something like, um it may not have necessarily been super meaningful. But I think he was just like, hey, I think she'll use this. And it ended up being something that I've used so much over the years.
I think that's so sweet because he recognized that you were a tinkerer. Tinkerer. I don't know if you know those
Yes.
words, but here in Oklahoma, we tinker. Okay, we
Yeah.
tinker with a toolbox and an old work shed, and so he recognized that in you. And do you think you picked that up from him as well? Like he also was a tinkerer.
Definitely, yes. He's been in construction his whole life, and he at one point was doing woodworking at like my first childhood home. I remember it was a garage, but it was also his workshop, and he has
Yeah.
built not arches. Oh my gosh, what is it called?
Um,
Trellises for my mom. He built her a greenhouse. Like he's
oh,
built her a bench, like a swinging archway that had wisteria growing up it. Like he's
mm,
definitely somebody who's always tinkered and worked with his hands too and created things. And so it's funny because I get that side from him. Whereas a lot growing up, I felt I got it from my mom because
mhm,
I think she also had different creative um, characteristics to her too, but I think it was more so her supplying the passion and like driving us to get on the floor, roll out that roll of paper, and just put different paint bottles down and let us just go crazy with our hands and finger paint all over the kitchen floor. Um,
that's all.
but when I look back, I noticed a lot of things that I also picked up from my dad of tinkering. And I remember him, even we would go camping and he would do little doodles like drawings, and I remember it being really good. Which is funny because he doesn't really do stuff like that a whole lot, like drawing and everything. And so I have these memories for sure of my childhood of just being surrounded by different aspects
Mhm.
of creativity.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious now that you're an entrepreneur and you're employed, whether at Heart Designs, um, what do you find where do you find the most joy? of being a creative entrepreneur who's online. And I don't recall if you have your merchandise at a booth or at a store or anything. You can tell me if you
Mm-mm.
do. But
No.
no, okay, it's all online.
Yeah.
Okay. So where do you find the most joy in that, Emily?
So I really find the most joy in it when I'm creating purely from the heart, but also I find so much joy in sharing my passion to inspire other people
Mhm.
to try, whether it's a paint finish, whether it is a full other different creative outlet that they maybe have not considered or they weren't inspired in until they saw something that I've created, because I'm very new at a lot of these different creative outlets. And um, although I'm a beginner, I'm dedicated to learning and expanding my knowledge in them because I have a passion for them. And so I I love the whole online aspect of everything because it has pushed me so far out of my comfort zone of an introvert. I would have never been here on a podcast with you. Like, if somebody told me that 7 years ago, I would have crawled under a rock. Like, and then
Yeah.
this year, I feel like I've broken so many of those. Like, I felt like I was so bound, and I have finally broken through this year in a lot of ways. So in Maine, in May, I went to the Creative Chaos Retreat and I taught for the first time live in front of a group of, I can't remember how many women there were, like 50 women or something like that. It was crazy. I flew across the country to Maine. Um, I'm really terrible in groups of people that I've never met before. My husband is definitely the talker. He's the outgoing one, and I just sit there and nod and listen, and I don't really give much input. And so for me to fly across the country by myself, meet Kristana and the group of teachers that I've talked to online for so many years, but I've never met them in person, staying in her home, a stranger's home, going and teaching in front of all of these women and with a microphone in hand. It was an overwhelming, in a good way, experience. And after that, then I had the turquoise iris journal that I submitted to be in. And now I'm in the journal, the summer 2024 issue. And now here I am on the podcast with you. It's just, I am very proud of myself for taking these steps and doing the things that feel so uncomfortable. And the opposite of what I would normally want to do, but I feel like it's helped me to grow so much more beyond even just my business, but personally as well.
You may have heard me say this because I know you're in the creative connection too with me, but when I flew across the country to Delaware by myself, had never left Matt, I was 40 years old. And that was the greatest sense of discovery that I had ever felt as well. I'm only 48 now. That was just 8 years ago. And I jumped in my car and looked at my mom because she had to pick me up at the airport. I'm like, Mom, I did it. She's like, you did it, baby girl. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm 40, but still I did it. I taught in front of the class. The same, our situations are so parallel, Emily, because I still will have family members who haven't seen me in a while and go, what are you doing on the camera? Like, this is not like you. You know, I'm like, I know, but I have found myself living, not just breathing. Like, I am not just taking breaths and going through the emotions and hiding behind the walls. I am stepping up and saying, I will take that mic because I actually have something beneficial to say and
Yeah.
I can help. And if I can't help, I can find someone that will. And I just feel like I have enjoyed my life so much more when I broke those chains and the constraints, and I'm not feeling the smothered, and I'm actually going, I have something to say. And I think it's valuable, even. You know what I mean? And so I completely understand how you're feeling. And yes, the connection to your creativity is exactly, but my sister, do not underestimate the power of the fact that you said yes. You said yes and you went and you said yes and you got online and you did the live and you've posted and you've said, I painted this, and you've waited for the reaction online of like, do you like it? And do we need validation? Yeah, we do. Really do. Because if you're running a professional business and you need to sell it, that's validated when someone gives you $500 for it. You're like, okay, like that's encouragement. Let's do that again. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the reality of it. So they say you shouldn't have to need that validation, but you most certainly do when you're trying to pay your bills and run a creative business. So I am thrilled and excited and so proud of you also, because I have been exactly in your shoes, Emily, which is, again, one reason why I wanted to feature you, because I see how hard you're working and I see those steps that you're doing, and I see that you might feel on a live a little shaky, but you're literally showing people that it's okay. And if it doesn't turn out well, it's okay, because when we are leaning into that creativity to the fullest, there's no ego. And if we bring our ego in, then we know we're focused on the wrong thing. And when we only think about ourselves and we only let our ego involve, we always lose. But man, if we can get out of that, there's so much win and joy that's involved in that. So kudos to you. We're all clapping for you. Silent
Thank
clapping. Or
you.
my kids taught me to do this when I'm in a crowd and I want to clap. They taught me this. I'm like, okay, what are we doing? Okay. So I'm doing that for you all around, everybody all around.
Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. So overcoming that and still working through it. I mean, we're all a work in progress, right? I mean, I had a meeting yesterday
Yes.
and I thought, I'm scared to talk in this meeting yesterday. What has been the biggest struggle, the struggle that just keeps coming up for you, that you've just, since you started Weathered Heart Designs, what's been the biggest struggle? Is it sales? Is it coming up with new ideas? Is it just navigating the community? What do you feel like has been the biggest struggle for you?
Um, I would say the biggest struggle. Ooh, that's a good question. Um, I don't know if it's necessarily the biggest struggle, but it's definitely a struggle that I face since I don't have my stuff in a booth or a storefront. Where I'm located geographically, I am limited in the time that I have the ability to ship furniture. I feel like, because during the winters, we're nestled between the sound, so water, and then the mountains. And we have a corridor of I-5 straight up. And so I find that it's hard a lot of the time to get shippers to actually come during the winter, because they have to go all the way up through Oregon into Washington, because those mountain passes, they close. They're very steep. They are quite treacherous a lot of the time. And so it limits me more to, I feel like, my local area. And so having to figure out how to market myself to my local area through Facebook mainly. I mean, 90% of where my sales come from is through Facebook. So it could be marketplace, it could be groups, it could be people who follow my page. But either way, I have to get my name out there locally. And it has paid off for sure, because I do have people who will find me and they'll purchase something. And then I have a lot of return customers, which is amazing. And I'm so grateful for. But to try to continually grow in, I feel like, a limited range of area, that's definitely been a struggle.
Yeah, no, that's a struggle for sure. I see, because I've always felt really lucky because I'm kind of centralized in the United States. And so, like, there's two major highways that go from coast to coast, or like from, north to south. So I've never really had that problem. So I can see where that would be. But I know that you're also working on Canvas. And like you mentioned earlier, you are kind of diving into different elements of your creativity, painting, but doing it on different canvases, shall we say.
Yeah.
So what's that been like lately in the last couple of years? What's that look like for you?
So I definitely, I feel like I've grown a lot in my art on canvas. It started out as I would be inspired by other artists and I would create things, of course, in my own style, but you could see who the artist was that I was inspired by, because my art would resemble different aspects of their art. And so trying to figure out what my style is, and my style is a range of styles. I have that bright Seattle painting that I did that's like the painterly colors, and it's has the bright neons, and it's very abstract, but I don't know how to explain it. It's just a very unique style. And
Just say
so I
pretty.
have,
Say it's so pretty, guys. Just trust
it's
me, it's so
beautiful. Yeah.
pretty.
So I have like works of art like that, but then sometimes I'm just so inspired by texture and landscapes. And so I have even a canvas that it looks like a cave wall. I added all my texture. I made it to look like stone. It
Mhm.
has little pops of green and some rusty colors to look like just the moss and the buildup of whatever minerals on a wet cave wall. And then I sealed it with I think it was a satin top coat. And so it looks shiny like it's wet. Like I definitely have a lot of different styles when it comes to my canvas art. And I feel like it's a good outlet where you can explore a lot of different styles and a lot of different colors. But it's also fun to all of these, I would say for the most part, I've been the inspiration behind, like not the inspiration behind it, but I've been the one who's thought up the ideas in my head. I wasn't going off of somebody's specific art or something that they've created. And
Yeah.
so trying to learn to trust myself in creating what I come up with instead of just feeling like I'm inspired and wanting to pick up things here and there from other artists. Um, I love trying to make it my own. Also, this last year, I have dived into pet portraits, which was
Wow.
hilarious because it was a wedding gift for my sister and her husband.
Oh,
We adopted one of the puppies of her dog. And so it was the mom and the dad of our little girl. And it was my first time painting a pet portrait. I didn't know what I was doing, but it got a lot of traction online. And so
great.
I took that and I decided it was a skill that I wanted to try to develop a little bit more. And so I posted online just, hey, if anyone's interested, I'm doing some pet portraits. They're very limited, but I want to grow this skill. And so they are going to be, of course, discounted from prices that I usually sell my canvas for. And I sold out twice of the allotted amount of canvas that I put up. Yes. And I feel like I've gotten now so much better. Like looking back, just even several months ago to where I was versus now, like my skill level grew so much because I don't even know how many it was, like 13 or something like that, pet portraits out of
Awesome.
nowhere. And so it was
Yeah.
really fun to just take that step to try something new. And although it's not something that I see myself ever doing exclusively, it is one, a good extra income for my business, but it's all about for me continuing to build my skill. And if it's something that I have an interest in, exploring it, and it may lead me to deciding, that was really fun and I gained a lot of knowledge and growth in my skill, but it's definitely not something I want to do all the time. So it's not always about starting something and it's going to be there forever. Some things are for a season. And I do think that my canvas art overall is here for the long haul. But yeah, what I decide to do for the subject matter of my canvas art, that definitely will always, I feel like, change.
Well, and a canvas can be anything because this is the girl who paints on wedding dresses and
Yeah.
formal wear. And I've always said my greatest tool that I didn't know was going to be a tool was finger painting. I truly believe that finger painting regularly for the last 6, 7 years has given me so much more benefit than if I had never ever done that because it works for me. It unlocks something in my brain to do that every single week consistently, every single Thursday. Like it's scheduled, I got to be there. It's a class. And that I think has done, like what you said, it evolves into the next thing. I think it's made me a better artist on fabric. And I think being a better artist on fabric, I'm learning how to become a better watercolorist on paper. And that in itself is allowing me, like, it overlaps how to be a better fabric designer. And from there, how do I pull this with this and this? And it's even helping me become better at the magazine, because when I'm taking photographs, everything ties in, especially when you understand literally how the paint works together and the colors, and being able to literally be my own chemist. And so it's so good that you're doing that, and you're working on different canvases and the pet portraits, because there's something in the pet portraits, whether it be the textures or the type of brush or the technique that you're going to be able to use, that's going to further your skill as a furniture artist. They're woven together so tight. And when you are curious enough, like you are allowed that curious exploration that comes with it.
Yes, definitely. I can
Yep.
totally agree with that.
Yeah, absolutely. So what will we see from you coming up in the next year or so? What can we look forward to from Emily Roth?
My continued art journey in furniture painting and creating from the heart, of course, some canvas sprinkled in there. I do want to work some more on embroidery and sewing. It is a newer skill for me, but I definitely have that passion for it. A quick little fun fact, I guess.
Sure.
My great grandpa, great grandpa, great great grandpa, I think it's my great grandpa. He came over from Europe and he was a tailor. He had his trifold mirror, so the three mirrors that he brought with him. I have the original center mirror. I don't know whatever happened to the two side mirrors, but it is the heaviest mirror. I remember growing up, my mom had it. I didn't know the story from it at all, but it was a perfect like floor length mirror. It was super heavy duty, has this big wood frame. So I carried it from house to house, from move to move, and I found out, I think it
Mhm.
was 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, one of my aunts reached out to me and she told me the story behind that mirror, and I was just blown away. I had no idea the meaning of what this mirror held, and
Mhm.
I thought that was super cool.
It
So
is.
I
It
think
this
having that in my blood, that he was a tailor, I have a passion for fabrics and
Mhm. Mhm.
wanting to create my own clothes and wanting to embellish clothes. It
Mhm.
is very time consuming. It's a little bit of a lengthy learning process versus just painting, but it's definitely something that I want to explore more.
Yeah.
Um, and
Can't wait.
then other than that, I am teaching in Maine again next year for the Creative Chaos Retreat 2025. So you can find me there again next year teaching in person. I'm really excited. Now that I have one under my belt, I feel like I know, I have more of an idea going into it. Like I feel more prepared, I guess. So I'm really looking forward to that. And I feel like I'll be more comfortable this time.
You will, and you'll learn from that, and you will be a whole new teacher, and something else will stir inside of you. I love that you brought up the story about your grandfather, your great grandfather, and thank you for that, because that just kind of wraps up this whole podcast when we talked in the beginning about being curators of timeless creativity, um, being a tailor and being a gentleman with a trifold mirror, and understanding how hard that profession was and still is to this date. But it's timeless, babe. It's not ever
Yes.
going to, there's no machine that will ever be able to tailor clothing custom for us.
Yeah.
There's no way. So we have to have those things, and that is something we have to pass down. So maybe one of these days you can come back around and we'll do a "What are you up to now" in the magazine. So whenever you design your first something or something, we'll put you back in there, because I just think that's so cool. And maybe even share the mirror, and we can even put that on social media or something too, because I love that. And it just ties in so much about why we're doing the magazine the way we're doing it, Emily. So thank you for that.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. And I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to see what the future brings.
Yeah.
And of course, I'm always honored to learn from you, and you are just a wealth of knowledge. Your team is a wealth of knowledge. Your creative connection that I've been in for all of these years, I have just taken away so much from it. And it means a lot for me to not only be at this point now where I'm featured in your magazine, yours, it has more meaning to it. And being on your podcast, it has more meaning to it because you have impacted my business and my inspiration and feeling like I can do it because I saw you do it. So thank you for everything that you do.
Oh, it's my pleasure, sister. I know without a doubt that if I can do this, so can you, and so can anybody else. When your heart's behind it and you follow that, there's nothing else like it. So thank you for this moment, this time that you've been on here with me. Thank you for writing the article and taking the photographs and taking it all so seriously. And really, thank you for just showing up creatively online. We need more creative people that are offering education and offering their time and teaching, so we can pay it forward. Because whether people are painting furniture 100 years from now, we won't know that, right? But
Mm-hmm.
what we are doing is we are teaching the qualities of paint and how to use them together and how to just beautify our lives. So when times get tough, and it's just tough in the world right now, we know, open up a can of paint and we've got therapy for the soul, don't
Yeah,
we? Yep.
absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, we know how to do that. So everybody tuning in, this is Emily Roth. Please scroll down to the bottom here, check out the description, go like and follow her, pick up the summer volume so you do not miss her feature inside the Turquoise Iris Journal. And Miss Emily, thank you so very much for joining me today. This was my pleasure.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So good. Everybody, we will see you next time for another episode of Paint Talks Podcast.